You understand that physical reality is literally just a dream that your spirit is having? Literally. You have never left spirit. None of you have. That's your natural state. You're there right now. You are in spirit right now. You are dreaming that you're not. That's what physical reality is. So the entity that you call Jesus simply understood that and therefore expanded the consciousness beyond the physical parameters to a certain point, to allow a fuller expression of his total being and the being of all that is to come through, as all of you can do. That's actually what he was teaching. Not about the idea of creating Christianity per se, but that you are all Christ's. And therefore, what he exhibited, you can exhibit. In fact, that's actually still in your Bible as a quote from him. Greater things than I have done will you do. How could that be if you are not also capable of becoming a Christ? Yes? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right. Does that answer? God's will is actually your will. And your will is God's will. Why? Because God is everything. God is all that is. You are made from God because there's nothing else to make anything from. Thus then, each of you expresses a different perspective of the will of creation. So creation doesn't need to stress or exercise any difference in its will other than the will it has created all of you and all of us and everything in creation already to be. You are already expressing all the different variants, in a sense, of God's will, just to use that term. So it doesn't need to contradict anything because it is everything. And if it wasn't important for you to have your unique perspective, your unique choices, your unique will, believe me, you wouldn't exist because creation does not make mistakes. So if you exist, creation knows you need to exist in order for it to truly be all that is. Without you, it would not be all that is. So your will is God's will, and God's will is yours for yourself. That's what you were created to be, an expression of, in a sense, God's will. To have the experience of being you, uniquely you. And you get to decide how to express that. Because it is your choice. It is your expression. It is your experience. It is your life. That's why you were given that life. That's why you were created, to express your unique perspective so that all that is has all the perspectives it needs to be all that is. Without you, it would collapse into nothing. You are that valuable. You are that worthy. You are that important. And you are that indestructible. You are never, ever, 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 ever actually, truly alone. You cannot be, because you are connected to everything. You are everything, expressing itself as everything, expressing itself as every aspect of itself. And thus you are all the reflections, and they are you. You are never alone. You have help, you have guides, you have friends, you have family on many different levels, and connections more than you can imagine from this perspective. You can always create the experience of solitude, and that solitude will always be respected to give you the space you need to function as the individual that you are, but you are never, ever, ever alone. And the second that anyone knows that assistance is required, assistance is always given. You are constantly, in fact, being bombarded with all the assistance we, your guides, and many other beings and source can possibly give. If you feel that the assistance isn't there, it's not because it's not being given, it's because you are blocking the reception by negative beliefs and buying into them. So as soon as you let go, you will suddenly realize, and in fact almost be blinded with the assistance that is always flowing your way without let-up of any kind. So tap into that river and let it flow through you, because it's always coming. It cannot stop.
Quran, like many religious doctrines, talks about the idea of a punishing God, and the idea of punishment of humans and judgment in a negative sense. All of that information is representative of the human filtering process based on its understanding at the time of receiving information. Therefore, it's a misinterpretation. If you understand that God does not judge, does not punish, but is unconditional love, then you will have the core essential filtering system by which to separate the original information in its raw form and the human interpretation that may have come through belief systems, even if the interpreter didn't realize that that's what was happening. So anything that smacks of judgment in a negative sense and punishment is not directly from God, but a human interpretation of the idea that you judge yourselves, that you weigh yourselves in terms of what it is you believe you are or are not in alignment with when it comes to the vibration of unconditional love. You are the judges. You are the punishers. But humans tend to avoid looking at themselves that way. So they assign it to the idea of God, which is not God, except as the human expression of God, with its foibles and fallibles and interpretive fear-based belief systems, which is also part of God. But you have to understand that it is the interpretation coming through a human. So anything that smacks of punishment and judgment is not the, shall we say, purest form of the idea of unconditional love that is the vibration of existence itself, which means it is the vibration of what you call God, or Allah, or Jehovah, or Wavoka, or whatever you want to call it, because God doesn't care what you call it, because God is everything and anything you can make up as a name to call it is fine, because all things are God, and there is nothing outside of it.